Hello, everyone. We're about to kick off the LookyLOO funding round. We couldn't be more excited to update you on where the company's at. We have Ed with us today to kind of give us an overview of the round, the company, what it's all about, and where they're going. How are you doing today, Ed?
I'm doing great, Travis. Thanks. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. There's a lot of people that are interested in what you're up to, Ed. I would love to hear just kind of an overview, maybe an elevator pitch on what the company's about before we jump in.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So LookyLOO is a platform for helping people and the professionals who support them find the next great place to live.
It's really cool. I love the website. The design is awesome. And finding places and opportunities where you can move to and explore areas you might want to move the family to. I've never seen anything like it, Ed. Can you kind of describe how you've built it, what the experience is built intentionally for, and what it serves?
Yeah, so the inspiration for it, maybe I'll start there, was, we were empty nesting. All my friends were empty nesting. My sisters were empty nesting. And we were all, wrestling with the question of where to move next. And if you looked into the, world of, moving, what you got were listing sites, the Zillows and the Redfins, et cetera, who just focused on the home. But for a huge percentage of the population, and this is pre-COVID, you didn't know what city you wanted to move to. You could move to Asheville, you could move to Paso Robles, you could move to Florida. There was so many options, and no tool really built in order to help you navigate that question of what would be a good place to move. And so then when COVID hit, and of course, a much bigger percentage of the population essentially got untethered from needing to live, right near their office, that it really motivated us to build LookyLOO. And so we started with the idea that people needed to understand the cities that would meet their criteria. And the tool kind of started with that as a basis. How do we help people understand all the cities that meet their needs, and make a simple platform to help them, uncover those cities, understand the pros and cons of them, hear from consumers, who actually live there, what they think about living there, get the data on the cities, and then ultimately supplement that with a platform that would help them and the professionals support them, like realtors or HR departments, make big decisions in that move process.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Really, home shopping, as it were in the past, you're right, is you just kind of finding a listing and then trying to do manual research on, well, this is a neat house. Why is the cost so low? What's the challenge in the area? What's the schools in the area, right? So can you give some examples of even more detail of what people are really looking for, and you're delivering on kind of a detailed level that makes it really an exciting proposition?
A lot of the characteristics of where you want to move are lifestyle based, not just geography based. Of course, in the old days, we would just move where the job is, or we would, stay near our family. And now, of course, as I said, we're untethered from those strictures. And so now it could be based on, I want to live in a beach town. I want to live in a place where there's a lot of pickleball courts. I want to live in a small town that has good high energy, but is less expensive than New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles. And so for starters, LookyLOO, gives you filter options to land on cities that meet a lifestyle. And since so many of us now move based on lifestyle, that was a critical starting point, that people could genuinely create a short list that fit the way in which they want to live. College town, active outdoor culture, certain, cost of living combined with another characteristic. And again, creating that short list and then getting an honest narrative. And this was critical to the people that we talked to before it was built, that what they couldn't stand about a lot of the content that was out there was it was all that kind of travel and leisure style written. It was very soft and it just sold you on the city. And that's not particularly helpful to a family trying to figure out whether the city they're going to move to, the schools are genuinely good and the streets are genuinely safe, and you're trying to understand what amenities they have that are, in favor or not in favor of you as a family moving there. And so, honest content that told you the pros and cons of what it would be like to live there, that was also really critical. And then to build on that, it was really consumer point of view on that. It wasn't just our narrative, but it was also locals telling you what it's like to live there. And that combination was really important to people. Because if you go to the listing sites and they have some neighborhood information, it's all a pitch. It just says, hey, it's great. They have microbreweries, they've got good schools. And then if you dig, a level deeper, you find out, not so much. Like it really isn't the particular way they're painting the picture. So, the first half of the solution was how do we give people a true assessment of what it would be like to live in a place? The second piece of it that was really critical was if you've talked to anybody who's moved, they describe the process and they describe what their desktop looks like when they're in that mode. And there's Google Sheets and there's downloaded articles and there's bookmarked things and there's, notes to their significant others and realtors. And it's just a mess. And so we created the Move Book tool in order to manage that process. And for anybody who's used a really good application that helps you, move through a process simply or in a more organized way, that's really what MoveBook does, is make sure that that process isn't so filled with, angst and forgotten steps and a lack of organization that it adds to your stress of a move, which is already a big deal. And so that combination of, good, honest content, good consumer reviews, and a good application to help you manage the process intelligently and cleanly is really the combination of factors that drives the tool.
So you've really aggregated all of the types of neighborhoods into categories that people are perhaps looking for, and you can kind of lead with that, jumping in, looking for maybe a beach town or a tree type city, or you want some more nature, more suburban, more fun, exciting, those kind of things. So you start with that preference. Then you kind of move in, you can read all of these authentic ratings on the cities that you'd potentially be considering. So you're kind of pitching them and organizing them, sorting them by popularity and a type of score, right? Can you talk a little bit about how LookyLOO comes through and sorts out these details, as authentic reviews, the score, and kind of the engine behind the scenes?
Yeah. So the way our system works, it's built on an AI system. It basically scans for one factor in our score. We call it the look score. We're essentially analyzing consumer sentiment for people who live there, and it does that through a large language modeling system that analyzes consumer reviews and pulls that into a total score for essentially the satisfaction of people who live there. It combines that then with data we subscribe to on the local economy. And then it integrates that also with lifestyle score. And we thought those three factors were important. You want to understand how satisfied people are living in a city. You also want to understand what the economic opportunity is there, the ability to earn a dollar relative to the cost of living. And then finally, you want to understand what type of lifestyle you could have there, culture, outdoors, all of those characteristics. So those three characteristics are combined into what we call a look score. And we provide the individual score. So you may say, hey, I'm working from home. I don't care about the local economy, within reason. And so I can discount that piece and just look for consumer sentiment. And is it a place that I think would be fun to live, or would keep me fit, or give me an opportunity to meet lots of people, who are in my life stage. And so the integration of that, AI system and the consumer sentiment and those other data characteristics combined to create that score. It's similar to, let's say, a Rotten Tomatoes score, but for a city.
I love that. And so really, if it looks to me like you want to be the first destination that someone who's even dreaming about moving can explore all the different types of neighborhoods, their preferences, and go in and find cities they might want to move to or move to in the future, or even just browse around and see what the rest of the world's like. So is that right about the first destination? And then kind of a follow on that is, how does real estate tie into, like, real estate listings, agents and things like this tie into your bigger vision?
Yeah. So you've hit the nail on the head in terms of the first step. What we found was missing, if you think about the move journey, as starting with that, it's Christmas and I've had my kids home and I'm realize I don't need a 4-bedroom home in the suburbs anymore. And we're ready to get out. The kids don't need us to have a big home, or, whatever the circumstances are. You would then go online and you would search, and all you would get pounded with listings. home, 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 which is great. Ultimately, you're going to need a home or a condo or an apartment, but it was just that missing step in the journey that we really wanted to fill kind of first and foremost. And so we've, filled a position in the market which was previously unfilled of helping people in that early stage. And LookyLOO is really that is a preeminent characteristic to the platform is solving for that early stage review. And we have we have real estate partners who sponsor different cities or neighborhoods or regions, who then get handed the consumer or the lead in their parlance, to help them with listings. We're not trying to replicate the listing business. We have great partners in realtors. And for the listing purposes, although you can save listings in your move books and you can certainly share notes and there's a comment ability, you can, say, hey, I love this, home in Birmingham, Michigan. And your significant other can say, doesn't have a patio, or whatever the characteristics are. You can tell the realtor that you like or don't like the particular listing that's saved there. But ultimately, the realtors are our partners. And for that particular stage, we want them to kind of own the listing piece. They can get leads from us. They can manage clients through the move book. But ultimately, we want the realtors to own the listing piece.
Yeah, I love that. It's a nice niche to carve out. It's very valuable. Can you share a little bit about where you make money in this equation?
The realtors pay us essentially for the sponsorship opportunities for different geographies. Again, that can be an entire city. It can be different neighborhoods. It could be a region if they really, we have found that there are realtors who manage listings across much broader than an individual city. We have realtors in Sonoma County and San Diego County, and they're managing multiple cities, and so they might take a position sponsoring multiple of those, and then their CV and their content that they load into the system appears there, and then the client or the prospect can then reach out to them and ask them questions about the local market, or they can ask them about particular listings. So we get compensation there. We also get compensation from HR departments for large corporations that also manage moves through the platform. So if you're Apple or General Motors or General Electric or Workday or any major company, and you have to move a lot of people, you can get an enterprise license through us for managing a lot of different moves within your company. And usage there is very move book centric. They're setting up move books for each individual employee that's moving or new employee. They're usually setting up neighborhoods that are near headquarters that they think would be appropriate, whether it's a family or a single or whatever the characteristics are. And then they're supporting them through that mechanism. We're also in the process of kicking off some sponsorships for the site, meaning not like Google ads, but major sponsors that we think also play a role in the customer journey. Companies like Airbnb that would be very obvious candidates when somebody's going through their shortlist and visiting cities. We think that's a very obvious sponsor for us, and on and on. So those are the primary ones that we're starting with. That there will be others. Lead gen is a big part of it, although the realtors are obviously purchasing access to the leads. There's other companies, moving companies, that down the road will also be candidates for lead gen.
Seems to me if you become the #1 destination for people thinking about moving, that you have a huge opportunity to connect with all types of partners like that as the first destination of anybody moving, which is a very, very large market. I was curious, as far as the move book, what can you share what that experience is like? It sounds a lot like Microsoft One, where you can organize a lot of information all over the place into a nice binder of information. But what do they get out of using this, and how does it make their life much, much better?
Yeah, so the application we would or the tool we would compare it to most is one on the platform House, which has something called an idea book, which is a workspace, which is what we describe it as. It's a workspace, and like that tool, you can pin cities and neighborhoods that you've gone through the tool and understand to be relevant to you. So you pin them to the system, and they're now in your move book. Let's say you're considering moving to Austin, Texas, and you got a half a dozen different neighborhoods that you think might be interesting, and you want to share them with your significant other, or you just want to save them so you have them for when you reopen your search. And so you have a starting point of the places that you think are right. You can then save a number of other things there. You can save the school districts in the neighborhoods that you're considering. That includes both the school districts themselves and the niche.com or great.org, great schools scores for those. You can save the articles that are written about those different cities. You can save listings that you were perusing. I don't know the neighborhoods in Austin, but let's say it was, again, Birmingham, Michigan. You can say, hey, I saw that the typical type of home in Birmingham is Craftsman. Here's a couple examples. What do you think? Could you see yourself living in a home like this? Saying this again to your significant other. And then the way the move book works beyond that is you then share it with a realtor. So you get ideally you go through our tool to get a sponsor realtor, or you have one in mind already. You then share it with them, and they see what it is that you're interested in. They may then supplement it. They may say, hey, you might not have thought of this neighborhood. It's one that isn't as close, or it's one that's in the city, but you might not know about it. And so it becomes a workspace between you, again, and your significant other, or you and a professional that's supporting you making decisions about that move.
So rather than, and everybody's moved, right? Everybody's moved. And I think we've all been through the pain of trying to organize all of that different information and then have a conversation about it, right? And so a lot of times I'll see a lot of text messages back and forth. And now, that was a month ago. How do we find that link again? Let's jump in the browser history, or maybe I bookmarked it. Everything's all over the place. So you're really making that process almost painless. And I think that's a brilliant play. I think that's about how it works, right?
Yeah, I think the other things that are in there that I haven't mentioned, one of the things that we heard very clearly from realtors is that they have to do a lot of that upfront work with clients if they haven't used, essentially if they haven't used LookyLOO. And some of that, they call it real estate counseling. And obviously they're making light of the fact that in many cases couples will show up and they haven't actually thought through all of the things they have to think through in order to make a decision. And so we have things like a quiz that walks you through, look, here are the things that you might want to think about before you get to the stage of talking to the realtor. Not that the realtors aren't happy to talk to them, but what it turns out happens is people will, like, if we use the Sonoma County example, they haven't really thought about, how close to the beach do they want to be? How close to San Francisco do they want to be? Like, what are the North Stars for them in thinking through that city? And the best case scenario for the realtor, the consumer has answered those questions ahead of time so that they can really get economical in showing them the best neighborhoods for their particular characteristics and showing them the best listings. And so we're working really hard to not only make it great for the consumer, but also for the professional, in the case I'm talking about, the realtor, so that they're not wasting anybody's time looking at neighborhoods that don't meet the criteria. They're not thinking about types of homes or proximity to places that are important. For some people, it's going to be closeness to wine country. For some, it's going to be the beach. For some, it's going to be the city. And just making sure that the customer has thought through all of these things and that the move book prods them to do some more of this homework before they start looking at homes.
Yeah, and there's really unlimited amount of preferences that a couple may have on what they're looking for, and some of that is not obvious at first. And the chance of a agent missing that in the moment or going through a full survey to get the whole picture is, I would have to guess, pretty low percentage. So what that ends up with is a lot of people being surprised, disappointed, frustrated, or even just uncertain about where they're going and all those things. So I can see how that provides clarity, as well as making sure everybody's on the same page, especially the agent, with the whole picture of what you're looking for. I did want to ask you about the new funding round you've unlocked. a great opportunity. Where are you going with the next phase of the company? Why are you raising this capital?
Yeah, so the thing that we've heard from the consumer side is that they don't want to stop using the move book at the stage of finding, creating their short list and exploring the cities and neighborhoods. They want to use it throughout the journey. They've started the process. They've created a workspace. Their kind of best case scenario is one in which the tool supports them throughout the journey. Access to professionals, moving companies, utility sources, all the characteristics throughout that journey. What they dislike is when they get to the stage that we've provided it so far, and then they're back in the Wild West. They've gone to something that's manageable and convenient and clean. And then all of a sudden they're back in the world of tons of tabs and tons of downloaded articles and, no reviews. And so we really want to push expanding the same characteristics that we apply to cities and neighborhoods to all the other characteristics of decisions that they have to make throughout the move process. I mean, if you look at the numbers, like something like 70% of the money anybody's ever going to spend on a home, they're going to spend on that move. And so huge considered purchases that they have to make. And everybody pretty much wants the same thing for each of those big decisions. They want honest assessment of their options. They want consumer reviews of those choices. They want access to approved professionals or professionals that have a good reputation for delivering against the characteristic that they're making a decision about. And they want it all in a workspace that's easy to manage. And so the raise is being done in order to extend the experience from the earliest part of the journey to the completion of it.
That makes a lot of sense. Just kind of expand what you're good at all the way through. Is there any other functionality or features or anything with the company that you really want people to know about that's coming up next?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one that we're probably most excited about is the addition of support for the armed services. We are expanding the coverage to include DoD bases, Navy, Army, Air Force, Marines. And I mean, it's probably no shock to anyone that the average person who's in the armed services, if they serve a full career, is going to move somewhere between 25 and 30 times in their life. There is no population that moves more than those people in the armed services. And it's an incredibly stressful experience. We've done work for years for the Navy and the Air Force, and we've learned it's an incredibly stressful experience for those families because the person who's in the armed service is usually gone when the move happens. And that means one of the persons in the household is left doing all of that work on their own. And supporting that community is incredibly important to us. And they have both the same interests as every other person. They want their kids in great schools. They want to live in safe communities. They want to have fun in the neighborhoods that they live. But they also have incredibly unique characteristics. And so I think the addition of the both content and access to solutions that in this case the content in the move book version that someone in the armed services will use will be customized particularly for that community. So that would probably be the other really major initiative that we're kicking off. And it's not different than the underlying platform. It just has, some significant variances based on the nature of what it's like to be a person who might move 25 or 30 times over the course of a career.
Yeah, it really underscores the value of and the power of the move book that you put together, being able to communicate with somebody that's not even in the same household as you, as you're trying to communicate what's happening and where you're headed, I suppose.
Yeah, no, the stories of it said half jokingly near divorces that happened because somebody was on the ship for 3 months after the move happened, and somebody else's the other partner is trying to say, what about this house? What about this school system? And then everyone just saying, just make the decision. And obviously it's just very stressful, and anything we can do to reduce that stress, to make the decision feel like it was a good one, and that it was made with both, really good information, but also a really good shared experience is really the objective.
And so it has to be very rewarding for you to be helping people move, kind of take that stress off, identify that opportunity, make it simpler. What would you say has been the most rewarding so far for you as you've built the company?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it sounds trivial, but I love when somebody, which we hear a lot, somebody says, "I would not have thought of that place if you hadn't said it, if your tool hadn't provided that." And we will hear that about, Ann Arbor, Michigan, or Bend, Oregon, or, Frisco, Texas, where people have a lifestyle interest, and that lifestyle can be their family, or that lifestyle can be a certain outdoor experience. But one of the things we heard before we created LookyLOO was somebody had made a move, and then they heard about another place that matched the characteristics they thought of. And they were happy where they lived, but they just said, "I wish we had known about that place." And so when we hear that the use of the tool added a place that ended up being to their shortlist, because we realize that people are going to need to go visit these cities or these neighborhoods and experience them. But when they hear that through the use of the tool, they learned about a new place they wouldn't have considered otherwise, and then that ended up being the place where they're going to raise their kids, where they're going to retire, where they're going to fall in love and have a great life. Like that's probably it. That's the end. And on the professional side, when the realtors say, "You've saved me, 40 hours of work and 400 emails about, what it's like to live in Bend, Oregon," that's very rewarding as well. But probably it's the consumer feeling like, it's the, customer feeling like they found their city that they ended up choosing because they used the tool.
I love it, Ed. And one thing I like a lot when I was exploring the website, it's just fun to click around and learn and see other areas, and almost as a discovery. Even though I have no intention of moving, suddenly I'm inspired to see what else is out there. And I love how you've made it interesting and fun to experience, and really easy to explore all of these different options and maybe open your mind. So if I move in the future, I'll definitely be using your platform. As we kind of wind this down, I want to remind everybody you do have an active funding round. I know if anybody has any questions, you'd be glad to answer them. Any closing thoughts for the viewers today as we kick off this awesome new launch for you?
I mean, probably just a recap of what we said, we really think, and I think most people feel it, that this is another era in mobility. And while some people I don't know if you believe it, it's have to get back to work full time, or, be in the office full time or not. Most people, it's some variation on that. They can live farther from work. They can live in another state. They can live in another region of the country. It is the biggest transition in the population since World War II. And the fact that LookyLOO is going to help a lot of this population makes good, smart, sensible, emotionally rewarding decisions about where to live is incredibly rewarding, and we really believe is a great opportunity for both the people who use the tool, but also investors.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and thank you, Ed, for sharing all this great information. Hope you have a wonderful day, everybody, and take care, Ed.
Great. Thanks, Travis, and thanks everybody for listening.